I want to get back to the high levels of consumer debt, and I want to ask how some of this has personally affected you guys.
Well, again, it doesn't have to affect me directly. It's affected my life directly because it's affected my mother and her family. After she was divorced, she was basically left with nothing. And she had to use credit cards in order to survive. And in spite of that, she still managed to go to school full-time and get her bachelor's degree and her teaching certificate. And I was so proud of her. But she was never able to achieve her goal or her dream of bringing us out of poverty because she was strangled with the credit card debt on top of the student loans that she had to take out in order to pay the rent, in order to buy food, in order to just survive, so that by the time she graduated, there was just no hope of saving any money, of putting anything back, of having anything in an emergency. And then the emergencies came, and the car broke down, and then we got another car, and 2 years later a woman crashed into her car, and the woman didn't have any insurance, and her insurance only gave her the blue ticket value of the car, which wasn't enough to buy another car. And all that stress, on top of the fact that she was a 30-year smoker, she ended up getting lung cancer. Then she couldn't work anymore. Then she had to spend all of our money on medical bills, on sanitizing the whole house. We were just living off of the scrape of nothing. I mean, for 2 years, I don't even know how we managed to get by, except that we had a little bit of savings and just...
Which that wiped right out.
And then by the end of the 2 years, we couldn't stay in Florida anymore. We had to move up here to Ohio to stay with relatives. We couldn't afford our own place. The rent was going up. We didn't have a car. It was just a mess. It's a mess. And that's how people's lives are destroyed and are irreparably changed. People can't get over sicknesses. They can't relax. They can't live their lives because they're constantly literally in the face of disaster. I mean, I'm carrying on the same goal and the same dream that my mother did. She's gotten over her cancer, but she's permanently disabled now. She'll never be able to work again. Her dream is gone. She'll never be able to fulfill her dream of just getting out of poverty. The same dream her mother had. So I'm taking up the torch, and hopefully I can finally get at least me and my children out of poverty.
That really, through that example, through what we talked about as far as college graduates not ever really being able to view the world through what they want to do, what they're passionate about, but it's only what's the job I can have that can service this debt that I owe. We really should look at having a society this indebted, or that we've allowed to become this indebted, as a it's a tax, in the same way. Sort of payday loans put you on a treadmill of being taxed on a personal level, but this whole thing really taxes our society, and that tax basically goes right into the pockets of the wealthiest people in the country. It's completely unproductive, and it not only does it basically remove just a little bit more consumer spending that working families could have, but it taxes us in a much more long-term way as far as businesses that never get created, risks that people are never able to take, a whole sort of enrichment level to society that we're never able to see the fruits of because people are, like you said, Daniel, basically imprisoned by this debt.
How are you going to have these young people go out into the world and supposedly start the American dream when they're going to be paying off the student loan debt until they're 60 years old? It seems completely not only illogical but antithetical when you try and tell young people that you can have the American dream. How are you going to have individuals start small businesses or progress in productivity when they're always bound and shackled by debt? it doesn't make any sense unless you have a European-style system where the government pays for your community college and half your university. Is the only way you're ever going to get anything done in this country.
For my final thoughts, I actually want to discuss one of the largest driver of debt, and that's mortgages. Americans owe as a whole nearly $8 trillion in total mortgage debt. That's a lot of money. A January report by a research firm found that nearly 22% of mortgages are underwater. That means the home is worth less than the loan used to take the loan taken out to pay for it. The absolute failure of programs to help struggling homeowners, lack of regulation in the homeowners market, and the very weak recovery, compounded by the fact that most of the gains from the recovery have flowed to the top 1%, and most of the jobs recovered have been low-wage jobs. And debt is something that just, right now, that we cannot count on our politicians to fix. And because of that inaction by our Congress, consumer debt will continue to halt our economic growth as a nation. And those are my final thoughts.